Hi, this is Daryl Myatt from Keller, Texas. Today is Monday, August 2nd, 2010. Hope you had a great weekend, and happy August to you. The summer's coming to a close, but the good thing about August, football season. Such a long wait from January to August. Anyway, let's get right into the news. This first story out of telegraph.co.uk says, the U.S. has planned to attack Iran if needed. U.S. military has a plan in place to attack Iran to prevent it from making nuclear weapons, America's chief military officer admitted, though he remained extremely concerned about the repercussions of such a strike. Comments by Admiral Mike Mullen, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, sparked an angry reaction from Iran, which promised a firm response to U.S. military action that would endanger the security of the region. We must defend ourselves if America or Israel resort to any hostile measures against our vital values, said Yadallah Yavani, the deputy head of the elite Revolutionary Guards. Iran has threatened repeatedly to target Tel Aviv, the second largest city in Israel, should the U.S. or Israel take military action against it. They have promised to burn Tel Aviv to the ground. So more of this going on and on. Seems like this is just going on and on. They're at each other's throat, vowing attacks by one side, and it just seems like a couple of bullies threatening each other, doesn't it? Here's a story out of Haaretz.com. Says Iran vows crushing response if attacked by Israel or the U.S. Says we'll set Tel Aviv ablaze if Israel strikes us. Iran vowed Sunday that it would deliver a crushing response to Israel and the United States should either attempt to attack the Islamic Republic over its contentious nuclear program. So, just more of this kind of talk. It's just, I can't help but watch Iran and Israel. Iran is Persia renamed, Persia from the Bible, and if you read in Ezekiel 38 and 39, it says Persia will lead a world army against Israel. And we're seeing the build-up to that right now. We're seeing what's actually going to probably make Iran lead a world army against Israel. It's this war that we're facing right now. And depending on what Israel's strategy is at this time with Iran is going to determine Iran's response. Now, Iran's response might be 2, 3, 5 years down the road if Israel is successful in their attempts at taking out their nuclear sites. It might take Iran a while to rebuild and recoup and get ready for their response. Could be right away, but who knows? It's hard to determine. The Bible doesn't give a timeline on most things. About the only prophecy that has a timeline is Daniel 9:27 that says, from the confirmation of the covenant there will be a 7-year tribulation period, and halfway into it, that the peace agreement will be they'll go back on the peace agreement, and that's one of the only prophecies with a timeline in it. So it's interesting to watch these things, and I think it's important that people know what's really going on. I think it's far more important than what's going on with Tiger Woods' life right now, or America's Got Talent, or whatever else is distracting most of the country and world today. Here's another story out of telegraph.co.uk. Iran's President Ahmadinejad challenges Barack Obama to a TV debate. Let's see. It says the provocative proposal came as Iran dealt with a new wave of international sanctions driven by Washington aimed at pressuring the Islamic Republic over its nuclear program. Toward the end of summer, we will hopefully be there for the UN General Assembly, and I will be ready for one-on-one talks with Mr. Obama in front of the media, of course, Mr. Ahmadinejad said in an address broadcast live on state television. We are ready to sit down with Mr. Obama face-to-face and put the global issues on the table, man-to-man, freely, and in front of the media, and see whose solutions are better. Now, he went on to say George Bush declined similar invitations because he was scared. I love it. I think it'd be interesting to see those two have a debate. I would like to see that. I think it would be, if nothing more, at least very entertaining. But, Obama's a very smooth talker. He's a great orator. He gives great speeches. I can't help but think he's all talk, though, because I've seen no action. Just a lot of talk, a lot of great speeches. I have to give him that. He's brilliant when it comes to speaking, but it takes a little more than speaking. Here's a story out of Israel Today. It says the Jews will continue to build in Jerusalem. Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat on Sunday emphatically stated that Jews will continue to receive permits to build in the eastern half of the city despite UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon's request that they be denied. In his meeting with Israeli Defense Minister Ehud Barak in New York on Friday, Ban insisted that Israel extend its 10-month Jewish building free in Judea and Samaria and even expand it to include those parts of Jerusalem claimed by the Palestinians. In a statement to the Jerusalem Post, Barkat's spokesman said the mayor condemns the racist suggestion of the UN Secretary General that construction permits in Jerusalem should be issued by religion, race, or national identity. The spokesman noted that denying building permits on such grounds would be illegal anywhere else in the world, and that Barkat intends to continue to issue building permits to Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike throughout the entirety of Jerusalem. I gotta give it up for the boy there. That was a good one. Over the past year, the international community has had increasingly exaggerated reactions to the building of Jewish housing units on the eastern side of Jerusalem. The Palestinians insist they will not make peace with Israel unless that half of Jerusalem, including the Old City and Temple Mount, is surrendered to them. Okay, so the Palestinians want the Temple Mount. It's their third holiest site in all of the world. But to the Jews, it's the most holy site there is. So who should get it? Seems like a no-brainer to me, but that's just me. Here's a story out of JerusalemPost.com. The U.S. warns North Korea and Iran, abandon your nukes. U.S. senior envoy on non-proliferation warned North Korea and Iran to abandon their provocative activities and give up nuclear ambitions, speaking at a meeting with South Korean officials on the subject of new U.S. sanctions against North Korea. Robert Einhorn, the State Department's Special Advisor for Non-Proliferation and Arms Control, discussed the new sanctions unveiled 2 weeks ago, which target the sale and purchase of arms and related goods used to fund North Korea's nuclear activities and the acquisition of luxury items to reward its elite. So here's the U.S. sending a warning. Hate to see warnings issued. That just means they're going to get some kind of brutal response. Here's a story out of Fox News. Praying outside a clinic gets man disorderly conduct charge. A Chicago man says he's fighting charges of disorderly conduct for simply standing on a public sidewalk and praying. Joseph Holland, a 25-year-old graduate student at Northwestern University, says he was standing still praying the rosary outside a Planned Parenthood facility in downtown Chicago July 3rd when police arrested him for violating the city's new bubble zone ordinance. The law, passed in October, states that a person cannot approach within 8 feet of another person without consent for the purpose of passing a leaflet or a handbill to, displaying a sign to, or engaging in oral protest, education, or counseling within 50 feet from any healthcare facility. It also says a person cannot by force or threat of force or by physical obstruction intentionally interfere with any person entering or leaving any healthcare facility. But Holland says he didn't approach or interfere with anyone. He says, I was just standing outside the building praying, and one of the Planned Parenthood volunteers came up to me and started yelling at me that I needed to move 8 feet away. But the thing is, I didn't actually approach anyone. I was just standing by the building, and the building doesn't actually have a bubble, he told Fox News. He still got arrested for praying. In America, what's this country coming to? Here's a story out of theundergroundsite.com. It says a Russian pastor was killed after media report called for his murder. Pastor Artur, this name is a killer, Artur Salyamonov, 49, was shot by unidentified gunmen recently while leaving Hosanna Christian Church in Dagestan on July 15th. He was a Russian pastor who founded the biggest Protestant church in the northern Caucasus region. The church has 1,000 members, 80% of whom were previously Muslim. Nice. He was murdered recently after a media report said he deserved to die for converting too many Muslims. Really? That's the kind of world we live in? You know, this it's the kind of thing, it takes me to 2 Timothy 3, verses 1 through 5. But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. I think Paul hit the nail right on the head, and sounds like he is talking about the modern day world right there. Anyway, let me go to Psalm 2, verse 2. That passage says, "The kings of the earth shall take their stand, and the rulers gather together against the Lord and against His anointed one." You know, Psalm 2 presents us with a very interesting contrast. It depicts the nations of the earth in a huge huddle. They pool their powers and their passions, their agendas, their ambitions, their ingenuity and their intellects, all for the purpose of overcoming and overriding the Lord's purpose. How foolish is that? This unholy horde raises their fists and their voices, proclaiming themselves as the keepers of all that's true. They preach it from the most hallowed halls of academia, in the most influential newspapers, magazines, and publications, and pity the person who doesn't blindly bow down to them. But on the other side of their assault sits God, who responds by laughing. Read Psalm verse 4. It says, "The one enthroned in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them." He's like, yeah, go ahead. Make my day. He probably doesn't say that, but he's got to laugh at man trying to plot against him. I mean, Lucifer in heaven was an angel, and he took a third of the angels in heaven, tried to overthrow God. No success. They failed, kicked out of heaven. What makes any man on earth think they can go against God? That just is beyond anything I can fathom. God is in control. No matter how intently man plots against him, or how determined he is to reverse his holy agenda, God will not and cannot lose the least measure of control over everything. God is in control. Whether you believe that or not, He is. He will do His good pleasure, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Not the will of man, but the pleasure of God. So it only stands to reason that if we hope to be people of substance and significance and leave a legacy that stands the test of time, then we need to get in line with what pleases God. Jesus said, "Not my will, but your will be done." We need to have that same attitude. We can either align ourselves with what He wants or hop the fence and find ourselves in a futile fight against Him. Let me read some more passages. Of course, Zechariah 14:2, it talks about, "I will gather all nations to Jerusalem to fight against it." So we already know that all nations are going to come against Jerusalem and fight against it. Daniel 9:9 says, "The Lord our God is merciful and forgiving, even though we have rebelled against Him." You know what? It's never too late to get on your knees, ask God for forgiveness. If you don't know Jesus Christ, it's never too late to ask Him into your heart as your Lord and Savior. It's never too late. Let me finish today with James 1, verse 22. It says, "Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says." Don't just listen to the word, do what it says. That's a very good word. Listen, we need to all pray for peace. Pray for peace in Jerusalem. Pray for Israel. Pray for America. Pray for all the leaders in the world. We need to forgive our brothers. If you have anything against somebody, you need to forgive them before you sit down and pray. A lot of things going on in the world. It's strangely quiet right now. It's kind of weird and eerie. So keep the leaders of the world in your prayers. God bless you. Good Lord willing, I hope to see you again tomorrow.